Okay, it looks like it's recording. So the April 1st Ortelius architecture meeting. I don't have the doc up yet.
I'll get it.
Okay.
Getting there.
So just a couple updates that we have going on. Today is the first day of She Codes Africa. We have 2 mentees. I thought we were getting 1, but we're getting 2 this time. So I'm going to reach out, or Sasha, if you could reach out to Aisha and see if she can help out on that. I know she mentioned some interest on that.
Yeah, she's in the invite. I added her to the invite. She's going to be in the meeting.
Awesome.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, I included it in there and I asked that lady. Sorry, my phone's going. Yeah, we just.
No problem. We'll come back to you.
Yeah, sorry, come back to me.
All right. So that's going to start today. It's going to be between 20 and 30 hours a week for about a month. We're going to have them focus on our new project, the part around dependency information. So going into containers, grabbing information out of the containers, like what are all the Python modules that are installed on the container, and what's the license associated with it, and the CVEs. There's another open source project that we're going to be leveraging around that. Actually, 2 of them. One is going to be Cyclone DX. They have the tools that you can use to stick into on the container side, like when you're in your CI process to gather that information, and then also a UI which is called dependencytrack.org. Is a UI that has some rendering in it. I'm not sure at this point if we're going to how we're going to relate the UI data and display it, if we're going to literally bring in dependency track into Ortelius, or if we're just going to make do our own UI, because the information that we're going to gather, the key information that we're looking for is what are the licenses being in the containers, and then what are the CVEs in the containers. That information, that dependency, I need to come up with a better term. If somebody has at the package level or the module level, the hard part is every language has a different term for it. So we'll call dependency packaging for now. The package information, we'll roll that up to a version of the component, and then from there we'll roll the component from the component version up into the application version, and then also at the environment level. So one of the goals on this part of the project is to, you always get these questions from lawyers, what are all the open source licenses that you're using in your project? Or what are all the open source licenses that are out in production, or what are the CVEs in production? So that's where we'll have this information to answer those questions as we roll things up through the process. So that's what they're going to be working on. Aisha and Sasha are going to be helping out as the mentors. If anybody else is interested, let me know. I'm going to push for them to be ask questions on the Discord channel. So in the dev Discord channel, that's where we'll be doing some focus. I don't have their user IDs set up yet. We have an onboarding call in a couple hours that will get all that sorted out. So we'll introduce them to the group. And if something comes up, they need help, please give them a hand. Also on our service catalog project, I did put out a database dump for some sample data. Let me drop that in the drive. I dropped it in the Discord but if anybody needs it, we run Postgres, like I think 9.6 or something like that. There are some bugs with the database drivers in 10, so we stuck with the version 9 for now.
Hey, Steve, on that topic, would it be useful if we created a test repository and added it to there?
I was thinking of that. I have to double check the data. It looked like there was no user ID, passwords or user IDs in there.
Oh, I see.
But there's like the basic ones like admin, test user 123, those type of things that are in the data. But I think after we have people play with it and we look at take a second pass at it, and if people are finding that it's good data to start with from debugging, writing your code and debugging, that we can move it over to a repo. It's not that big. I think it was like 10 meg or something like that, 15 meg.
How would we just take the user IDs and passwords out of it?
Yeah, and because it's a text file, we can go ahead and edit the text file directly.
Okay.
So I think it's pretty clean from what I been working with. It came from one of my test databases that is basically built up from scratch, versus a database that I do a dump of, like somebody else says I need a debug or anything like that. So I'm pretty confident that we're going to be clean on that front, but I just want to wait and leave it out in a Google Drive for now.
Okay.
So that will, there's instructions, there's a README there on how to load it into Postgres. If you are using Windows, if you go to the Postgres website, you get redirected to another company. It's like Enterprise DB or something like that. That will give you the installer for installing Postgres locally. I usually use something in the version 9, version 10 area for Postgres. You'll end up with 135 or 140 tables. If you need help navigating the tables and working on queries, let me know, because I'm in there all the time, so I'm familiar with the relationships. I can at least point you to the right tables to get the data that you want. For the service catalog, we're going to be creating a couple new tables, specifically to deal with the dependency packaging that we're just talking about with the She Codes Africa mentees. So that will be part of their project, as well as doing some database table creation and manipulation. Not a big deal, a couple tables. Like I said, most of the stuff is already pretty well laid out for everybody to move forward with. I did change I'm in the process of changing the login for Ortelius to use JWT tokens instead of, so basically you log in with your user ID password and you get returned a JWT token. I did an implementation where we can revoke the tokens from the server side. The tokens live, I think, for an hour. So basically that's how long you get to be in the UI until if for inactivity, if you're inactive for over an hour, then you have to log back in, basically. So that's going to be hopefully early next week. I'll get that merged into everything. I just have to do some more testing on it. It's a interesting change, put it that way. So that's where everybody will be able to start using that token on the RESTful API in your microservices to be able to connect up to the database and as a particular user and be able to basically get your data without having to go through a fancy login process at that level. So that was the main stuff that I had.
So is there any, so since this is April 1st and this is a month that we're really going to start working on coding, are there any issues that you want to cover to see if anybody wants to take them on or discuss them here?
Yeah, so on the issue side, I want to thank Owen for doing some more work on the website, fine tuning that. Oh, and I saw a pull request for a git ignore, I think it was. Can you just give us an update what you did on that?
Yeah, sure. So the way Hugo works is takes the defined Hugo content and then renders it out to content which then gets loaded into the Nginx container we use. So that's the eventual static content. That writes out to /public in the repo and /resources. Additionally, because we're using the Hugo post CSS version, we also have node modules we need to install. So I was finding myself when I was doing local dev that I was doing Hugo serve -d, and then I opened up git status and was like, holy hell, there's 17,000 files which need to be committed. I'm sure I only made a single line change. And it was because the rendered output hadn't been added into the git ignore. So that's now in the git ignore. If we were running the website directly from a Git repo, which is one of the ways of running Hugo, we would want that stuff to be committed. But because we're then rendering it we're creating a Docker container as the artifact, and we have a multi-stage Docker build. So we build it into one stage and then copy that across into the final image. We don't need it in the repo. So I've just added it in as a bit of housekeeping to help keep the repo a little cleaner. Yeah, that's essentially it.
Now, does the you know, when you can go to like a blog page and you can say, I want to edit this page, is that still working?
Yeah, that
Okay.
should still work. So it will still take you to the Git repo and take you through that process, because that's handled as a direct link to the Git repository, which really just changing it so we're not storing that rendered artifact content in Git, as we only need it in the eventual container.
Right. All right, cool. Because I was one of the things that I was scratching my head with for a while was how to get that edit link to work correctly. So awesome. And just to let people know, the build did go down yesterday for the website. That was on our side. We run the reverse proxy on our network here because I have the keys locally on our network for connecting to Azure and Google and things like that. So we have a set of SSH keys that we use depending on who we're authenticating with. Basically public-private keys for the different cloud providers. So I run that internally on a network, and that Docker container just went down. We've been moving things around here at our office, so that's part of the reason. Eventually, I want to move that to the Kubernetes cluster somewhere, and lock down those keys over on the cloud provider side. One of the things that we need to start looking at from an architecture perspective is who we can get as a cloud provider for running our Kubernetes cluster. Right now, we're running under Deploy Hub was able to get a startup program through Microsoft. So we got 1 year worth of basically Azure resources or up to 25 grand of Azure resources. That's going to expire, I think, in June.
We should be the CDF should be able to host us.
Okay.
You just need to bring that up to the TOC, Steve.
Okay. I'll make sure that gets on the agenda.
Yeah.
Because the other thing we could do is I believe there may be an open source program in Microsoft that we may be able to leverage since they have the startup program.
No,
So
I think we just need to reach out to the CDF. They will. I'm sure that they'll host us. They have budget for doing that.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure. That was the main stuff that I had.
Issues.
Issues.
To start for folks to start coding on. Do you have any kind of good intro issues?
Good
I know
intro.
that a DT would probably take some on, and I think Powell would take some on.
Okay, let me jump over there. Where'd it go? There. I don't know why it ended up down there. Oh, I did open a new issue yesterday around creating versions of environments, something that we need to start thinking about at that level. So that's one of the things. It's not in this project here, but that's one of the things that we're going to be focusing on down the road. So if anybody is interested in the dependency packaging around Cyclone, dealing with security scans, CVEs, licenses, the Cyclone DX is a good one to look at. And this is where we're gonna need to throw a couple people at this. I don't know if the mentees from Chico's Africa are going to have enough knowledge about the underlying covers and why we're trying to scan for things. So that's going to be one thing that we're going to need to bring on at that level. And I know Karam was looking at doing some dependency information visualization. So this may be in his wheelhouse on that front. I don't know if he's on today. I don't think he is.
I do not see him.
Front end work, don't worry about it. I'll take care of that. And then we're getting into the base microservices. And I know, who is it? Zach. I think it was Zach was doing some updates around the Helm charts. So there's a lot of little cleanup that we need to do with our existing microservices that we had in place from the hackathon. We should probably go ahead and dive through and get those cleaned up. And then we'll get into the bigger stuff, which is the new service catalog. And I thought I put the service catalog. For some reason I'm not seeing it.
And I think what you're going to do is break it out for updating the what service data and break it out into small chunks. So
I did, and I'm not seeing it. That's why I'm confused.
Are you sure you put it in this repository?
Yep. It's weird. Let me do this. Yeah, I created them a while ago. That's the weird part.
Maybe you fixed them all in your sleep one night.
Yeah. It's gonna be along this line. I'll make sure that they're. Here's one of them. So some of the base data that we need to gather. We have most of it, but we're going to need to do some queries to persist. Slack channel, HIP chat, Discord, PagerDuty, those type of information. Put some information, basically what we're looking for as far as a rough query as part of that process. I'll make sure the other ones are created because I'm not seeing them here. I may have tagged them differently.
Yeah, since we only have 8 minutes left on this call, what I suggest that we do is schedule a day for anybody who wants to start working on this project, the service catalog project. Make sure we have the issues clearly defined, and then kind of do a kickoff meeting. I think maybe right now, because I think we have some folks that are new to programming as well, that it would be helpful to do some kind of a regular call just to make sure we, just for the service catalog folks who wants to participate in that.
Right.
Does that sound okay with everybody who might want to be involved in that?
I'm keen to dive into anything.
Okay.
Just send it my way.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
There's 82 issues, so you'll get 80 of them
Thanks.
signed to
Steve.
you.
You think? I wonder if Owen's on call. Maybe I can just call him for a little bit of a side note help, especially since he's in a similar time zone.
And Powell and I don't know if Aditi, if she dropped. Are you guys up for doing some work in this area?
Yes, for sure.
Great. And is this time okay for both of you?
Well, for me, not earlier than 4 p.m. would be great. Because
And what time is it? What time is it right now for you?
It's 4:30 p.m. So usually
Okay.
I finish my work at 5, but sometimes I can, let's say, stop earlier. So the 4 p.m. is the earliest that is possible for me.
Okay, and Aditi, what about you? What time is it right now?
Well, it is around 8 p.m. right now.
So can we do this time then, possibly starting next week?
Yeah, it is fine.
I think it will be okay.
And Sasha, you're still in the earlier part of the day, right?
I'm the same as Pavel. I think Pavel's in Poland. Same at the moment. It's the same time zone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do it at this time, which would be 8:30 for us. And we'll do it, but maybe just do a standing meeting that you can jump on a call with Steve. Steve, what's your calendar starting to look like for next week?
We can do Monday. Yeah, Monday. I don't know. It's Easter Monday. I don't know if that. This group doesn't seem to care about holidays, so.
We're just a bunch of pagans, apparently.
So
yeah. I think I think at this time 8:30 for us on Monday is a good would be. You don't. It looks like a pretty empty day for you actually.
Yeah. The only thing I run into is these other CDF meetings that get in the way.
Yeah, there's nothing for you. There's no TOC meetings or SIG meetings.
There's Vent SIG on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I have to find out. And I'm not sure if today's interoperability is actually happening or not.
The event SIG's at 9, so that gives you 30 minutes just to do a touch base. But I think you kick it off on Monday.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think the best way to. So I'd hate to put this out to everybody in the Google groups because a lot of people this is more of like a smaller working group. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the calendar invite in the announcements in Slack in Discord for Monday, so we can at least start there.
I think it's okay, Steve, to go ahead and put it on the broader calendar. It's more transparent because there could be somebody who couldn't have made it today and would like to be involved.
Okay, I will do that. I will set that up.
The other item that you might see on your calendar is we have a group out of Australia who want to start working on the architecture team. So, but it's like 1 in the morning right now for them. So we're going to do a kind of a shadow or a second architecture meeting, and that is happening today at 4 o'clock. No, we're going to start on the 15th. So 2 weeks from today, we'll be doing 2 meetings. One will be at this time at 8 o'clock our time, and then the follow-up one will be at I think it's 4:30 our time. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I can't translate for everybody what those
4:30
times are.
Mountain Time and 8 a.m. Mountain Time
Yeah.
are going to be the next ones on the
So
15th for
if
architect.
if that second shadow time works better for you, you're totally welcome to attend it. It's really going to just depend. I think for most of you, it'll be a weird time. It'll probably be 1 a.m. for the rest of us. But so we'll be doing 2 of them like 6 hours apart.
I just want to join so I can poke the Aussies, you know, and give them some grief.
You would think that I know that Australia is a ways from you, but it's since you're so far south, you'd think that it would be closer to your time zone. But I know it's an east-west thing.
No, my sister lives there. I always give her hell about it.
So for you, what time? What time is it? How many hours apart are you?
Yeah, it's quite far. It's like it can be like I think it's like 8 hours or something.
Yeah, I was gonna guess.
Yeah. But it's fine. If I'm up, I'll join.
Okay. Yep. If you're up, you'll join. Well,
Yeah.
So that's happening, and they're going to try to get a small team together. Apparently, there's a lot of people in Australia who want to participate in open source projects, but because of the time zone, they've been limited. So we're going to accommodate them. It's not a problem for us to do this call twice. And we're not going to have it. We're not going to do that with the regular community meeting or the outreach. We're just going to do right now the architecture because I think most of them want to code.
So what I'll do is, yeah.
Sorry, at night, 12:30 at night in South Africa, in Cape Town. So probably the same for Europe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Roughly.
See, for us, they're getting closer to where it's almost a 12-hour, 14-hour difference. So it actually, our morning is their evening and vice versa. So it actually makes it pretty easy. So I will make sure that those issues are all out there and ready to go before Monday, and put some more detail behind them, some more meat behind the what we have going on, and then we'll get running on Monday.
And we need to make sure that everybody has what they need to do the coding. If there's stuff that they need to download, I think we should focus on making sure everybody has an environment ready to go.
Yep, and I'll put together I'll kind of post it out on the Discord what you need.
Or you can update the contributor doc.
Okay, I can do that. I have to create an issue first.
Okay. Please do.
I think that's all I had really. We're going to start moving here pretty quick. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be a good learning experience for us all. I think the blogathon was useful because it started requiring it, and it was great. Oh, and thank you so much for getting the website where it's at, so we could have that as our sort of our first big project. But I'm looking forward to seeing everybody starting to get their head into coding and watch people's skills increase, and it'll be fun. Be hard.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Can't wait to get something dangerous to do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm worried about.
You know what?
Sorry, Steve. Sorry, Steve.
It's okay.
Another get atomic bomb.
Steve has had to deal with me for the last 20 some odd years, and I break things all the time. I'm a terrible programmer.
So we'll the approach, just so everybody kind of knows in general, the approach I like to use around the programming is, it may seem a little slow, but what I do is we'll take this in small steps because I don't know everybody's programming skills. And if you're a rock star, I'll have you jump in and help other people. But what we'll do is we'll set things up so we do a small change, like Sasha put together a bubble sort for a Python Flask. It has nothing really to do with the data that we're dealing with, but it's going to be something, a good starting point for the mentees to get them going on that. And then we'll build on to that, putting it into a Docker container, and then doing a cloud build around that. So we'll do this process where we're going to iteratively add on more complexity to the coding. So once we get to the certain level, we'll start bringing in SQL queries and multi-transactions and things like that we'll be dealing with. So everything's going to be built upon at that level. So that's the way I like to approach things, because it makes it easy. We have small finite tasks that we know we can achieve. We can make sure that everybody's on the same page at that level. Then we could go to the next part of that process. I don't know when or if we're going to get anybody out of the Google Summer of Code. So that we'll deal with, and that when that comes across.
Yeah, that's not till June anyway, so that gives us some time. So that's why this the She Code Africa and getting this project started will be good practice for us.
Yeah. So that's kind of the approach that we're going to have, just so everybody knows.
I shared that doc because I was doing that thing, and it was taking some brain power. I still didn't get everything right. Yeah. So that's why I thought it'll be a good one.
Yeah, definitely. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. And I will send out that invite for Monday, and we'll talk then.
Okay, talk to you guys on the kickoff.
Can I make a quick question?
Yeah.
Yes, because I'm wondering about this microservice management platform. Why? Because actually everybody around me talks about that, but I don't know actually how it looks. And would it be possible to share some test environment of this, to just play around, check how it works and how it looks?
Yes. Well, that's the contributor guide I'm going to work on.
Okay.
And there's also a you can have you signed up yet?
For which one?
I don't know actually.
There's a Deploy Hub team that we host the Ortelius, the full Ortelius version, and it has something called the Hipster Store.
Okay, definitely I'm not.
My suggestion is, Steve, can you send him a calendar link?
Mm-hmm.
And Steve can help you get signed up and started on playing with the test data in the Hipster Store.
Great.
And what microservices are in general are little functions that go and get like data. So example, microservice would be get the user profile. And that's the only thing that the microservice does is go retrieve a user's profile based on like a user ID as an input. So that's all that microservice does. And what we do is we have in Ortelius, because we have about 130, 140 tables, we'll have around 140 microservices, roughly, probably a little more, to do what we need to do to make the transactions occur. Now, what that allows us to do is we can have each person working on a specific microservice, and they're isolated from everybody else for the most part. So what that allows us to do is to have different speeds on which microservices are being developed and maintained. And what we do from the front end side of things, and also on the Kubernetes cluster side, we kind of plumb it all together at runtime. So we pick which versions of which microservices that we want, and we plumb it all and hook them all together at runtime at the Kubernetes level. So that's the way we use microservices. Now, what ends up happening is once we write like that user profile and we're happy with it, we'll probably rarely have to go back and revisit it unless we have like a business reason to go, or business reason or a bug that we need to go change it. But we end up with 80% of our microservices will be pretty static. And there'll be 15 to 20% that are going to be changing a lot because of enhancements, new business requirements, bugs, those type of things, is where we'll have that those updated, those microservices updated more frequently. So it's a really nice way to architect an application as part of that process.
So in general, if some new microservice will be created or has been created, the new table will appear, right?
Not necessarily. The backend tables. Yes, that is true. With some of the databases that exist out there, like a Mongo DB. And Docker just popped up saying you want to install. So like a MongoDB, one of these NoSQL databases, you can just go ahead and write your code, and your code will basically, the way you write it allows it to persist the data basically kind of automatically in the background for you. But
Okay.
because we're using a relational database, we have to go create the tables and the columns and things like that.
Yeah.
And then we have to go ahead and hook in queries at the microservice level to go get the data, interact with the database. So
Okay.
our world is a little more traditional than new new databases that are out there.
Okay, I think I get it.
But go ahead and I sent you in the chat. You should see Steve's calendar.
Yes.
Just click on that and grab a slot. And anybody, if there's any questions you have, don't ever hesitate to grab time on our calendars. You can find our calendars at Deploy Hub. There's on the front page. Steve, you just go to the website.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm replying back to Owen.
Here, I'll share. I'll do it. So if you go over to the website, there is on the front page, it says, this is on our corporate website. It says chat with the team. And if you click on schedule, there's a link to put time on my calendar. And then there's 2 links to put time on Steve's calendar. One's like a 30-minute and one's an hour. I would schedule the deep dive. And if you just click on the calendar, you got his calendar. So never hesitate to put time on our calendars.
Can I ask a question, Craig? Is there a CI/CD tool that we still need to test? I'm just asking for myself so that I want to try and do 2 birds with 1 stone, because I've got some stuff on my own private network, my home network, that I'd like to, I could use a tool that we need to test and use that as part of my, part of the testing.
I think the GitLab.
GitLab.
Yeah, we really have not built in any pipeline pieces around GitLab.
Okay, cool. Because I've got a bunch of stuff trying to run at home, and my home network's getting bigger and bigger.
If you're looking at an open source one, though, I would suggest taking a look at Kepton. I think we should have better integrations with Kepton.
Yeah, that's
okay. I wanted to ask you guys while you're on the call, just to check if then I can do one,
From a commercial perspective, I think that we do need to do more work with GitLab, because I know there's a huge user base for GitLab.
Yeah.
But from looking
I've
at
done a lot of GitLab.
Okay, well, that one would be a good one. But just from a forward-looking perspective, building out in Kepton an event for Ortelius would be a really great idea.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks.
the hard part with like even like Tecton, Kepton, there's a couple others out there like Puppets, Nebula. You have to actually stand up a full Kubernetes cluster, and you know, if you're going to be doing that on, you know, one of the cloud providers, that running that every day, it gets pretty pricey.
Yeah.
Just very quickly.
You couldn't run it
Yeah.
on a local machine though.
No, it's more difficult. Yeah, Owen.
I was going to say on the Puppet Nebula, which I think is now called Relay. It's their kind of SaaS version. So Intelligent Growth Solutions is on their early access program.
Oh, nice.
We essentially have a 30 user license free for a year. They're going to be working with us to create integrations we need. So if we're looking at potentially Relay and Ortelius, and IGS is beginning to test with wheels more on Ortelius, I might work with them and ask if they're able to create that as part of the early access program for us, just for hooks on their side. So let me know when we kind of down that route. So
yeah, because I did. We were involved in when it was called Nebula. So it was like the beta of Relay. So we did create I can't remember what they're calling, but basically we created our module for Nebula, which should translate over to Relay pretty easily.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff is pretty much cross-based, and that it's built on top of Tecton. But yeah, essentially, if there's anything we're using at IGS where we're finding they don't have great native support for it, part of the EAP program we've got with them is to basically say, hey, could you help flush this out or polish it up or bring it into the core Relay modules so we can utilize that link if we need to look into that.
Yeah, perfect. If you could do me a favor and open an issue around that,
Sure,
just so, because I will totally forget about it. Guaranteed. Because I know, like I said, I did work around Nebula, so that should translate over to Relay, and I believe it should translate over to Tecton as well. Because, like you said, under the covers is basically Tecton stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
Let me see if I have that.
And I think that an integration with Relay. I mean, if we were to say if we have to choose between GitLab and Relay right now, I would say let's do Relay.
So I would say GitLab.
I know because there's so many people using GitLab, but in terms of the cool factor, I think that some of these new tools, these event-driven tools, are going to be so much more interesting.
It's not that event-driven.
It's not?
No.
Okay.
They're trying to get there. When we were talking to the wherever the project lead, the VP or project lead of that was, their idea of event-driven was one pipeline calling another pipeline, and that was their big event.
Okay.
But it's probably changed since when we originally looked at it. So.
Well, it sounds like then it would be maybe GitLab, Relay, and then Captain Sasha would be the order.
Ooh. Now I have a pipeline already set up. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one obviously is Spinnaker. But like I said, some of these other CI/CD tools are so, you know, they're a lift to just get installed and get going. So
that's what I'm finding.
Yeah, that's why, like you said, something like GitLab, the Nebula, I mean, Relay, now that they have the SaaS version with the early access, that one would fit in. You know, like Tecton does not really have a SaaS version. You have to install everything locally as part of that. So that's one of the things you get tripped up on. It's not hard to install, but you just have to have the resources to do it.
Does GitLab have a SaaS version?
Yeah, it's all SaaS.
Yeah.
It's been SaaS for years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's Circle CI, right?
Yeah.
And we have Circle CI covered.
If we're talking about local dev environments, I was mentioning the dm.sql stuff potentially as a container, potentially the microservices which we're looking at spinning out as well. As far as that, it might be worth looking into something like Scaffold and having a local Scaffold template, which is Google's spin up a stack of microservices against a Kubernetes cluster, which you can automate locally. and it will install the Helm charts and do the whole deployment. I found it's quite useful for validating the whole end-to-end deployment locally. So it might be that we could look at creating an Ortelius scaffold template, which we can just add in new Helm charts to. And then if Sasha wants to look into a specific CDO solution, it's quite often easy just to slot that in for your local dev stack. I'll make a note to try and write up a little bit of notes on scaffold and log an issue against something to look at for that local dev ecosystem and environment.
Yeah, because
that sounds cool.
Yeah, because does that run in a? It's been a while since I've run Kubernetes locally. I usually just run the Docker containers locally and interact with them at that level. You know, that's one of the nice things with the microservice, because you can put, you know, you don't need this whole big dev environment. You have the little piece that you get to work with. But what are the Kubernetes clusters look like these days for like a Windows? Is it being shipped natively?
So it's not being shipped natively per se, but you've got a couple of good options. Minikube is the traditional one which runs in a VM, but you've now got stuff like Kind, which I use quite heavily. It's what we're using at IGS for the devs local dev stacks, and Kind is what the Kubernetes SIG uses for their dev, and it essentially brings up the full stack inside Docker. So as long as you've got Docker, it will then bring up a control plane and the number of nodes you specify within Docker, which is one of the nice things about it is you can figure the whole thing through YAML files you provide as part of the input. So it's really easy to automate in a programmatic way, to kind of stand up and tear down of that. We're using it now at IGS because we have certain cloud components as part of the deploy, which we sometimes want to validate locally before it goes through the CD process. So it allows the devs to say, I want to bring up these services with debug hooks into it and the emulator for Azure Blob storage within my local environment. And we found it's a little bit easier doing it that way than trying to do it with just pure Docker containers, because it lets them validate their Helm files as well.
Right. Nice.
But I'll make a note to write up something just as a kind of some notes on local dev, and maybe an issue to look into options around how we support local dev with splitting out more of the services into microservices.
Exactly, because we will end up with some tightly coupled, I wouldn't say tightly coupled, I would say we're going to end up with dependencies between services. I can already envision that. So like the login service and your microservice. So you log in to one service, get your token, and then that token will be used for your service to access the database. So we'll have some multi dependency or multi transactions that we'll need to have to deal with. So we'll be bringing up a subset of services locally for dev, but I don't think we'll need the full stack initially.
So I'm gonna so on this topic, I'm gonna ask Owen and Steve if you guys could kind of work to make a decision on how this can move forward, and also if we need to do anything with GitLab on GitLab or Puppet Relay. I can also reach out to reach out to Abby Kearns, and I can reach out to Brandon O'Leary. I'm sure that they would give us environments to work in from an open source project standpoint.
On the Puppet side?
Yeah, on going back to Sasha's question.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely with Puppet, they're going to general release in the next week and a half, I think it is. So they're really ramping up the PR and also looking to get more integrations and people on board with it as they move from this kind of EAP to general release. So they're in a really good position right now to do that. Eric Sorensen is the technical product owner on that side, and he's pushing pretty heavily to try and get people using it and integrated. So I think that'd be pretty cool.
I believe we talked to him a couple times.
I think so. Let me see who it was.
I don't know. We skip ahead and go right to the CEO. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, Yvonne. I know Yvonne would if I sent her an email, she would tell me who I should. Yvonne and Abby would take care of us. I'm pretty confident about that. So if we want to pursue, and you know, that's something that we always looked at doing. That's why we did it. We worked with them early on with Relay. So maybe we should just pick up the discussion again, Steve, and
Okay.
I'll reach out. Oh, and I'll go ahead and
let's-
reach out to my contacts, and if I have any issue, I'll ping you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've already mentioned Ortelius to Eric in some of the chats we were having early on. So if it ends up being routed to him, he's got some familiarity with that space.
Let me tell you who it was that we reached out to. Let me see if I can find them.
Well, what we'll do for a game plan is we'll
Alex Bilms. That's who we want to talk to.
I don't know if he's still there. But we'll find out. So let's knock out the GitLab because it sounds like Sasha's pretty far along, and then the next one trailing on that from a CI/CD perspective will be Relay.
I have a question with an answer for another time. Why do we even need Docker? So I'm just going to leave that. It doesn't have to be answered now. With Kubernetes, why do you even need Docker? I mean, surely Kubernetes can't Kubernetes just build containers itself and pull them and all that?
Yes. So Docker is the original way to create an image. Now there's been other tools out there to create the images. So you could do
like Podman and that type of thing are all coming out.
Yeah. So the Kubernetes is going to run an image, and Docker just happens to be the first and one of the easier ones to build and run locally.
Okay.
What's the other one? It came out of Google. No, start with a K. Everything starts with a K with Google. Is the build the Docker build tool that allows you to build without having to connect to the Docker host.
I know Podman build a Kaneko, which does it within a Kubernetes cluster.
Yep.
One of the things I would say on the alternatives, some really cool ones out there around, especially now the kind of OCI image spec. The cross-platform support is pretty limited though, with most of them. When it comes to wanting to be able to do it in a consistent way on Windows in particular, Docker's pretty much still the only tool which has the full cross-platform coverage, or doesn't require a Kubernetes cluster like Kaneko does. Or Kaneko technically builds it in Docker; it doesn't need a cluster. You can do it against Docker, but yeah, Docker's still the kind of baseline for all platforms.
And and you can run Kaneko from the command line without and not have to do it in the cluster. One of the nice things with Kaneko is it doesn't require a connection to the Docker socket. That's how come it can be used inside of a Kubernetes cluster.
That's pretty cool.
I just wanted to ask that question because I thought maybe it was a piece that could be skipped, you know, it's like something less that you don't need, you know, less configuration.
Yeah, if you were to go, let's say you had a Kubernetes environment, let's say just like Minikube. If you're running Minikube and you wanted to do all your testing inside of Minikube, you could use Kaneko or Podman and build your images and not have Docker running at all. You'd be just interacting with Kubernetes, which would be running the images, and you'd have some other tool to create the layers for you at the build level.
Okay, thanks. That's quite a. I didn't think it would be. We would have time now to answer that.
No problem. You get a, you know, get me to geek out. I can go on for hours.
Steve, I'll put some time in your calendar.
No problem.
I'm looking forward to post-COVID when we can all catch up at a conference somewhere. And,
yeah,
that'd be cool.
It'll be a very big rabbit hole where everyone goes down.
Yes, exactly. All right, everybody, we taken up more than plenty of your time today. thank you
So-
everybody for listening in and
Yeah, and
contributing.
Alex is no longer at Puppet, the person that we were working with. So who did you suggest we talk to?
I'll ping you an email
Okay,
with my
thanks.
contacts.
Okay, perfect.
No
And I'm
worries.
going to send Abby an email right now.
Cool. No problem.
Right, thanks.
All right, thank you everybody, and keep a heads up for the invite for Monday, 8:30 Mountain Time.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.